What if you are blind, alone, and frozen at Mount Everest? Do you have willpower to survive? In 1996, Beck Weathers, struggling with clinical depression, decided to climb the Everest to prove his worth. High on the mountain, he went blind due to a pre-existing condition, and as a deadly storm hit, his guide was forced to leave him behind. Beck was found once again when they are going downhill, barely alive, but declared unsavable. For over 15 hours in minus 40 degrees Celsius, blind and frozen, he was in his deathbed. Then, in a dreamlike state, he had a vivid vision of his wife and children. They were asking him to come home. His inner voice said, "Stand up." Beck rose from the death. He moved his frozen, rock-like body. A few hours later, the campers saw a brave man walking toward them in the storm, covered in snow. He had walked 26,000 feet alone. It was Beck. Beck had done the impossible. He was later rescued in one of the highest helicopter evacuations ever.
In 2020, a mysterious cargo ship slammed into the coast of Ireland. Locals ran to check what just happened. They climbed aboard, but found nothing but silence. It had no crew, no captain. Everyone started calling it a ghost ship. Locals believed it was cursed. Some said the crew was taken by aliens. Others blamed the Bermuda Triangle. Turns out, the ship broke down in 2018 near the Bermuda Triangle due to unexpected engine failure. The crew was rescued by the U.S. Coast Guard, and the ship was left to drift. Over 18 months, it traveled over 4,700 miles. It crossed the Atlantic Ocean alone through storms and waves. No one ever claimed it. Was it abandoned on purpose? To this day, the ship sits rotting on the coast. Chris Lemons, the diver who came back from the dead. Chris and Duncan were working more than 900 feet below the ocean, fixing an oil rig. They were connected to a diving bell, a chamber that keeps the pressure stable. Without it, their lungs could collapse or rupture due to pressure differences. But then, disaster struck. The ship above malfunctioned and drifted. Chris felt a snap. His oxygen supply was cut. No light, no heat supply. His backup tank kicked in, just 5 minutes of air. His heart went cold, but he stayed calm, didn't move, tried to save every breath. His teammate Duncan rushed back to the bell. When the ship regained control, Duncan dived again. Even though hope was fading, they searched for 35 minutes. Then, he saw a body lying on the ocean floor. He brought him back in the diving bell. Chris had no pulse, no signs of life. They gave him 100% oxygen. A minute later, Chris gasped and said, "What happened? Did I miss something?" He was clinically dead. In Canada, someone pulled off a $18 million heist, not gold, not jewels, of maple syrup. There is a secret maple syrup reserve in Quebec, Canada. Yes, a syrup vault to control prices like oil. Thousands of barrels are guarded and monitored. In 2011, thieves rented a warehouse next door. They slowly took out real syrup and replaced the barrels with water or left them empty. No one noticed for months. In total, they stole 3,000 tons of syrup. One day, an inspector picked up a barrel and said, "This feels too light." He opened it and it was empty. That is when the police got involved. Worth over $18 million. 26 men were accused of the theft and went to jail. Even then, a lot of the syrup was never found. A 15-year-old boy who go through the minus 60 degrees of deadly temperature just to see his mother. His name was Yahya Abdi. He had escaped the war in Somalia and came to America with his father and stepmother. But he missed his real mom deeply. For many months, he had no news about her. One day, out of desperation, he snuck into an airport and climbed into the wheel of a Boeing 767. No jacket, no food, no oxygen. As the plane took off, the temperature dropped to minus 60 degrees. His body started to freeze, and due to decrease in oxygen, he passed out. His survival was impossible. But when the plane landed in Hawaii, the ground crew saw him, barefoot, confused, half frozen, but alive. Doctors said, due to sudden decrease in temperature, he goes into hibernation-like state that saved him. Later, the FBI found his mom in a refugee camp in Ethiopia. They talked on the phone, but it's not known if they ever met in person.
1994, Mauro Prosperi, a former Olympian, joined the toughest foot race on Earth, a 250 kilometers through blazing sand. But on day 4, a sudden sandstorm hit them. Mauro, fearing disqualification, kept running. When it cleared, he was 300 kilometers off course. The first night, he curled under a sand dune, hoping daylight would guide him back. Next day, he walked 40 kilometers. He found no other runners, no organizers, no signs. Then he realized he was in serious danger. He stumbled upon a small, abandoned building made of clay and stone. His water ran out that night. For a few days, he used his shoelace to set traps and caught small animals. At day 9, he was too weak to walk. He began to crawl. That night, he wrote a letter to his family that he loved them, and he tried to came back, then lost his consciousness. At sunrise, he spotted someone at horizon. Nomads, wrapped in traditional desert robes. He was taken to a hospital where doctors treated him. He had lost 18 kilograms. Imagine this. You are in nothing but boxers, surrounded by total darkness, and then you realize you can't breathe. It feels like a nightmare. But for Harrison Okene, it was real. He was a cook on a Nigerian tugboat. In 2013, a rogue wave struck them. The ship flipped and sank 100 feet into the ocean floor. Everyone else drowned. In bathroom, Harrison was also drowning. Just as his oxygen began to run out, he found an air pocket in the engineer's office. No light, no food, freezing water everywhere. He climbed onto a floating mattress and prayed. For 3 days, he heard sharks moving around. He survived on 1 can of Coke and his faith. Then on day 3, a hand reached out from the darkness. Harrison was shocked. A diver searching for bodies found the Harrison alive at the bottom of the freezing ocean. Science can't explain it, but Harrison calls it a miracle.
It was 6 U.S. soldiers against 50 Afghan fighters, and the Afghans had to retreat. At an American outpost near the Pakistan-Afghanistan border, David was monitoring radio chatter when he heard something strange. It was coded military language. They had less than 20 minutes. But there was a problem. Only 6 American soldiers were at the post that day. No backup. David didn't panic. He thought fast. There was a narrow valley the enemy had to cross. It was dark, steep, perfect for a deception. David gathered the team. One soldier started pitching tents. Another set up cardboard cutouts of soldiers across the ridge. The Afghan fighters entered the valley. The setup wasn't even finished. One soldier lit smoke bombs. When the Afghani reached there, from a distance, it looked like a full battalion. The enemy turned around and retreated without a shot fired. Because sometimes the smartest weapon is illusion. Lowell was traveling with his uncle on a small chartered flight. They were headed to his hometown in southern Ethiopia, but the weather turned bad. Heavy fog and rain surrounded the plane. Then disaster struck. The plane crashed into a mountain. He woke up alone, surrounded by dense forest. No roads, but Lowell made a bold choice to leave the crash site and search for help. He walked through the forest, cold and scared. He saw wild berries, but didn't eat them, afraid they might be poisonous. That was his second best decision. That night, he hid under a tree, trembling as wild animals howled nearby. By morning, he was hungry, weak, and tired. He drank muddy water and followed the distant sounds of birds and cows. That night, light rain gave him a few drops of water. On the 3rd day, too weak to walk, he kept going. Finally, he reached a small clearing near a village. Farmers saw him, limping, covered in cuts and dirt. They rushed to help, carrying him to the nearest clinic miles away. He was the unluckiest and the luckiest man on Earth, the only person in history to survive 2 atomic bombs. 6th August, 1945. Tsutomu Yamaguchi, a 29-year-old engineer, was in Hiroshima for a business trip. While he was walking towards the shipyard for work, suddenly, a bright white light filled the sky. His eyes went blind for a moment. Then came a huge blast. The first atomic bomb had dropped. He was just 3 kilometers away. The force threw him into the air. His face and arms were badly burned, but he survived. That night, he found shelter. The next day, he managed to catch a train back home to Nagasaki. He went to warn his family. 3 days later, while telling his boss what had happened in Hiroshima, another flash, another explosion. The second bomb had dropped. And again, he was only 3 kilometers away. And still, he survived. Tsutomu Yamaguchi lived a long life. He passed away at the age of 93 from natural causes, the only man known to survive both the nuclear bombings. Andre was a professional truck driver. He was carrying 40,000 liters of gasoline through a crowded market. Suddenly, he felt something was wrong. The brakes were loose. Then they failed completely. The engine caught fire. If that truck exploded, everyone within 100 meters would die instantly. People 300 meters away would get serious burns. Even at 500 meters, the shock wave could injure many. Andrei knew 200 people could die. People screamed and ran away, just like your online girlfriend, after seeing you. But he didn't. He pressed the accelerator. The fire grew. Thick black smoke filled the air. He could barely see. He kept driving away from the village. Just as he cleared the edge of the town, boom, the truck exploded. Andrei had jumped out in time. No one was injured. He saved an entire village and became a hero.
Imagine this. You are in nothing but boxers, surrounded by total darkness. And then you realize you can't breathe. It feels like a nightmare, but for Harrison Okini, it was real. He was a cook on a Nigerian tugboat. In 2013, a rogue wave struck them. The ship flipped and sank 100 feet into the ocean floor. Everyone else drowned. In bathroom, Harrison was also drowning. Just as his oxygen began to run out, he found an air pocket in the engineer's office. No light, no food. Freezing water everywhere. He climbed onto a floating mattress and prayed. For 3 days, he heard sharks moving around. He survived on 1 can of Coke and his faith. Then on day 3, a hand reached out from the darkness. Harrison was shocked. A diver searching for bodies found the Harrison alive at the bottom of the freezing ocean. Science can't explain it, but Harrison calls it a miracle. What if you woke up alone in the middle of the Pacific Ocean? Would you survive? In 1983, 23-year-old Tommy Oldham and her fiancé were sailing from Tahiti to San Diego. In middle of the journey, they were hit by a Category 4 hurricane. The boat was broken. Her fiancé was gone. Next morning, she woke up drifting in the middle of the ocean. No radio, no mast, just a shattered yacht. She was emotionally broken for several days. Suddenly, she began hearing her fiancé's voice in her head, encouraging her. Then she decided not to give up. She stitched together a makeshift sail, caught rainwater in buckets, and rationed the peanut butter and canned food she had. With a broken sextant, a device to navigate in the sea, she navigated 1,500 miles. Every day, she battled sunburn, hunger, hallucinations. After 41 days, she spotted a land. It was Hawaii. Her hands were shaking, and her eyes are full of tears as she guided her wrecked boat into the harbor. Soviet scientists flying over the Siberian wilderness spotted something strange. A wooden cabin deep in the forest where no one should live. Inside, they found the Lykov family. In 1936, escaping Stalin's religious crackdowns, they fled into deep forest and never returned, believing they will be executed if they did. Their children were born in the forest, raised without roads, electricity, and no contact with the outside world. They thought they were the only people on Earth. They hunted squirrels, made ropes from bark, and smoked food to survive brutal winters. After 42 years, when discovered, they had no idea about World War II, the moon landing, or even small things like mirror terrified them, thinking there is a spirit inside it. After 3 years, 3 of the children died in their 40s, likely due to exposure to outside bacteria. After 7 years, their father died in 1988. Only Agafia Lykov, the youngest daughter, survived. She still lives alone in the forest. What would you do if you lost in the middle of the jungle and you are 13 years old? Would you survive? This is not fiction. This really happened. On 1st May 2023, a family boarded a small plane, escaping violence in southern Colombia. When the plane was over the Amazon rainforest, engine failed and it crashed. All the adults died, including their mother. Only the children survived. 13-year-old Leslie became a mother overnight. She wrapped her baby sister in torn clothes, collected rainwater in bottles, and kept her siblings alive using survival skills passed down from their Huitoto tribe. They slept under leaves. They battled insects, hunger, and fear. Leslie told her siblings, "We survived together, or not at all." Leslie's hope was fading, day after day. But on day 40, a miracle happened. Colombian soldiers and indigenous trackers found them, weak, barefoot, but alive, standing like warriors.
He escaped the prison from the main gate. In 1939, Nazi Germany invaded Poland. Kazimierz Pikowski was just 19-year-old when the Nazis arrested him. They sent him to Auschwitz. Every day, he heard gunshots and watched people die. But Kazimierz had a plan. One day, he quietly teamed up with 2 others, a priest A mechanic. They forged Nazi uniforms from stolen cloth. The mechanic grabbed the garage keys. And on the morning of the escape, first they go to the bathroom, then brush their teeth, which you don't. Then they suited up, walked like officers, and marched to the garage. They started the commandant's car, then drove straight to the front gate. An SS guard raised his hand. Kazimierz didn't flinch. He shouted in perfect German. The guard saluted. The gate opened, and just like that, they drove out, right through the front gate of Auschwitz. And they were never caught.
On the 13th of October, 1972, a plane carrying a Uruguayan rugby team crashed in the Andes Mountain due to poor weather, killing 12 people instantly. The survivors were trapped in minus 30 degrees Celsius snow with no food. After 8 days, they heard on the radio that the rescue mission had been called off. With no other option for food, they survived by using the bodies of those who had passed away and made blankets from torn seats of airplane. After 60 days, 2 men, Fernando and Roberto, set out to find help. Climbing 15,000 feet mountain in sneakers, Parado was expecting green valleys on other side but saw nothing but endless white mountains. They cried a lot, but they didn't give up as their friend's life also depended on them. They continued downhill, hoping for help. After 10 days of walking, they spotted a man across a river, a Chilean shepherd. The next day, they came to help their friends. Out of 33, only 14 ultimately survived.